Good evening. Today is Tuesday, December 8th. This is the regular meeting of the Rhinebeck Central School District Board of Education. Can I have an approval of the minutes, motion to approve the minutes of the November 24th, 2020 regular meeting?
So moved.
Any changes or discussion? All those in favor? That motion passes. Next, our report from the superintendent.
Okay. So, as was predicted by all public health experts, there has been a significant increase in the cases in the county, in our local area, and just in general across the nation. We did expect that, and at this point, as I have reported to the community and to the board, we did have a positive case among an individual at the elementary school as well as at the middle school. In both of those cases, there were no school-associated quarantine or close contacts. And I did, at this point, want to just recognize that our school nurses have been fantastic in this. There is a tremendous amount of investigation and monitoring that is associated with all cases. We actually keep track of all symptoms, and we do follow-ups in all cases. So if there's any symptoms, our health professionals are actually making those phone calls home to determine why students are out, and we keep track of all of that. If someone is designated as a close contact because their parent or someone in their household is a confirmed positive, we keep track of all of that, the quarantine dates. We monitor when the return date is coming back. We make phone calls if they were expected to be tested or not. There is a lot of tentacles to each one of these cases, and our nursing professionals deserve a medal of honor for the amount of work and how attentive they are to all of that. I will say that in addition to all of our health and safety mitigation efforts that all schools do, which schools are a safe place, you've heard many experts say that. In addition to that, I think that what is extra special about our approach is the careful consideration of every individual case and doing that extra investigation and those extra interviews at home and taking every opportunity to educate families about how it's better for us if you quarantine if someone in your house is pending a test because it does minimize the potential for contacts within our school building. Because if there's a potential chance that there could be a positive, if the person hasn't been in attendance within the proper date range, it minimizes the amount of associated contacts. So we are continuing to educate. Every interaction we have with a community member or a faculty member or an employee, it is taken from a point of education and learning about that. We strongly believe that learning more is another means to address the anxiety. And with that, I do want to acknowledge that there is an emotional toll that this takes on all people, whether you work in a school or don't work in a school. There is a mental health component to all of this. I had briefly mentioned at the prior meeting about the need for stamina and resisting COVID fatigue. But I think as you see things on the news and you read about growing cases or you watch the dashboards and you see percentages, it does lead to some anxiety. And my goal is to provide much more education to our employees so that they feel included in those processes and protocols. Much of this happens behind the scenes because they're really working with the kids directly, and we have a lot of steps. So one action step I'll be taking in this week actually is to provide more direct education and offer a Q&A session for our employees so they understand completely what goes on behind the scenes as it relates to all the tracking. And I do hope that that is one measure to address and validate the anxiety, but also to educate and to help us all continue our mitigation efforts. We has, as many people have noted around the region, the county percentage has been over 3% for 10 consecutive days using the 7-day rolling average, which is the metric for a cautionary yellow zone. Yellow zones, however, are not based on a full county. They're actually based on a unique zip code or census tract. So we anticipate Wednesday, tomorrow, that the governor will make an announcement about new cluster zones, which would be a yellow zone designation. Our estimation is that it would not affect zip codes in the northern part of the county. That'll be affecting parts in the southwestern part of the county first. We are not able to access zip code data, but that is what all indicators have had. We do have monthly meetings with the health department, and they keep monitoring all of that with us. And that being said, the yellow designation would require us to provide testing to 20% of students as well as 20% of faculty and staff. There are many school districts who have been in yellow zones and who have conducted that testing, so there is a body of knowledge about how to do that effectively. There are some measures that, if we see this happening in our county, that I would make a recommendation that we seek the initial consent in advance, so we're not waiting on that, so we would kind of know, because parents do have to consent to allow their testing to occur. So I share this as a report to the board just to illustrate that we are as educated as we can be. There is constant coordination with the public health officials, with the peer superintendents. We're all working together through all of this and sharing all of our best practices and what we're learning through that. I wanted to also update the board. I had a very productive meeting with members of the CLS staff as well as with the RTA to discuss some possible solutions. I'm very optimistic that we're finding a way to maintain that balance of providing the high quality experience that we do have for our students at CLS while providing the needed relief, and to acknowledge and to validate that. And I feel optimistic that we are approaching a good resolution that's a win-win for all involved. I would like to say thank you and acknowledge Steve Boucher, our athletic director. He is here today with a pilot of live streaming. So currently we have a few selected district employees who are accessing the live stream, and we'll get their feedback on that process. And if this is a success, we could start to push out the link as a live streaming tool. It's another way to connect our community and to promote transparency of the board. So I want to thank Steve. He approached me about our relationship with the NHS network, which allows us to do the streaming. Typically this would be used, I know it was used for graduation. It's also used for athletic events. So I just wanted to say, he really stepped up and just said, hey, we have this, let's, do you want to try it? And he offered to come here tonight to test that for us. So I'm hoping it's a success, and we can make live streaming just a part of what we do to engage our stakeholders. I had a very productive meeting with administrators last Wednesday, and we reviewed the budget development process. I know that it's been spoken about at the committee level, so we've introduced the principle of tying all of our financial endeavors to the district priorities, to the building priorities, and telling that story, so that when we do the budget development process, we will be articulating what it's all about, how it relates to the educational experience of the students. So I'm excited that we actually took those steps to make that change, and we're doing that. It's not going to be, completely, a revolution of how the process is done, but I'm very happy that even amidst a time of tremendous uncertainty with COVID, that we're still able to be progressive and thoughtful in how we present our information to the community and how we develop the budget in a very thoughtful way. I also wanted to just inform the board that the first meeting in January, Emily Davison will be joining us to present on the K-12 counseling plan. In addition to that, the Social, Emotional Wellness and Mental Health Committee that started as a subcommittee as part of the reopening work has continued to meet, and now they're expanding the stakeholders to that committee. So it'll actually be the shared decision group who reviews that K-12 guidance plan in anticipation of the meeting. So it's a real nice byproduct, silver lining to that subcommittee structure where we got a lot of involvement around social emotional wellness. We're going to start to see some benefit of that at that presentation. And I sent this in my packet update, but I just wanted to again congratulate the 6th grade team for their virtual field trip to the Wolf Conservation Center. I thought it was pretty cool. They had a live streaming. They were there with the wolves, and they had the experts talking about that. The students were asking questions. They sent an invite, and I really enjoyed seeing that and how creative we were able to still provide that experience. And the conservation center was so appreciative that we were still curious, that we're still giving purpose to their work. and they welcomed us there. So I wanted to commend the sixth grade team, and particularly Brenda Palmatier for putting that together. And lastly, I just want to remind everybody that this Thursday, the Drama Club is presenting their virtual play, and that is 13 Ways to Screw Up Your College Interview. It's a comedy, and it is all virtual. And I am really excited that we're still allowing an opportunity for our performers to engage in what they love and doing it in a creative way. And that's this Thursday at 7. I did post it on the district website, so there's links to how to access that there, and I'll push it out on the social media as well. That's my report.
Any questions? I have a couple questions. So you said this before, but just for students that may need to stay out because of a possible case, I just want to reiterate that it is seamless. They can go directly to remote if they've been in person.
Yes.
The parents don't have to fear that they're going to miss out.
That is absolutely correct, and I have tried to restate that time and time again, that we are trying to do everything we can for a family to make the most responsible decision, which is to keep their, when in doubt, keep them out. We now have the devices going home 3 to 12, so all of the MacBooks are now going home with students starting in 3rd grade where the MacBooks are. We have not yet rolled it out with the iPads at the primary level, but it is a seamless transition for a family to do that. And the teachers have been really good. Sometimes it's the teachers who know first that the student's going to be remote. The parent just writes to the teachers, and the teachers, share the links. Everyone wants this to work, and they want the learning to continue, but they want to do it in the safest way possible. So yes, absolutely. It's not to say that there won't be a hiccup here and there,
Sure.
but everybody is committed to making that transition seamless, in and out.
And then, so your best guess is that we won't go into one of those clusters, into the yellow zone, potentially.
I am not.
A guess.
That is my best guess. What was indicated to us is that the county-wide statistics are heavily skewed toward the southwestern part. I'm not identifying any towns. The dashboard is the dashboard. You can see the shading on that. In all other counties, when the zones come in, it comes in very specific zip codes. You see that it's like very spotted, the map. And all that information is public information. He typically makes his cluster initiative designations on Wednesdays. So I'm anticipating learning something more tomorrow.
So it's by zip code. I mean, schools are made up of multiple zip codes. Could a
Right.
school have just a one cluster?
If your school building is in that zip code. So for those districts who
so
have,
even if you just have one tiny part of your district?
it's only that building. Everybody else is just operating as normal, but that building would be required to test 20% of that.
if the physical building
Correct.
is in,
Yes.
so that would be all our buildings, right?
Correct.
Those are all-
For
Okay,
us.
so it's not like if Stanfordville zip code was a cluster zone, that wouldn't affect?
It's not, it's only if your school building. So
Okay,
if
so only
it
if
was,
Rhinebeck.
if, say we had one of the 6 towns were to be in that zip code, if it's not the 12572 zip code, it would not affect it, because it's actually the physical address for all, and it's not only schools, because the zone designations are for houses of worship, they're for business, they're for everything. So it's based there, so if your physical building, if you're a school there.
Okay. And then if we were to move into that, how often does the testing have to happen?
They have revised this. The guidance changes based on supply. So originally, it was purported to be once 20% weekly. Then it was for a long time that it's existed, it was bi-weekly. And now the most recent guidance that we're getting is that it's going to be monthly, but in an initial 20% to kind of reopen, and then a plan to do that on a rolling basis. They're giving you a range of time because you don't have to do all en masse, but you have to guarantee that within a certain date range that you're taking these tests. And that testing does not have to be testing that we provide. It can also be coordinated. So one way is that because the supply chain is what it is, you are able to take test results from families from approved testing centers and count that in the count. So if people went out on their own and got tested and they brought that back in, that's how we can get that. It doesn't have to be in addition to testing that people get in the community. We have to do another 20%. That all has to be documented. So we basically have to say, to do an audit of all testing that has occurred in this date range.
And then if we don't have the 20%, do we have to provide the test, or do we have to like set it up for them? Like how?
So in Dutchess County, there was an article published in the newspaper that early on that the health commissioner of the county had indicated schools would have to be fully remote if we were to go yellow zone. It was an article, a lot of people circulated that. They have now since revised the guidance, partially because the state cluster initiative modified their procedures with the amount of time. They have assured us that they have an abundant supply and that they will partner with school districts. They don't anticipate being in a situation where we're all going to be in a situation at the same time. But there are some larger districts that would take up larger tests. The county would do that. It should be at no expense to the district to provide that testing. Districts may opt to seek out testing on their own. Like we could do that proactively, you know, but the county will partner with the Department of Health. It will be their license. We are not licensed as a lab.
Right.
We can't do that.
Right.
What we can do is do the accounting and bookkeeping of all of the testing and coordinating all of that, and partner with certified labs or providers.
Because it seems like it could be problematic. You can't just go and get a test easily.
Absolutely not.
When you're, especially
It
when you're
is every
asymptomatic,
day.
it's not easy.
Every day, it's getting harder and harder to get testing.
Yeah.
You know, I spoke to someone today where it's going to push it all the way into the weekend before you can even get an appointment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And lines, you know, you've heard stories, lines around the block, which is also causing a delay of results coming back. We were seeing results turning around in 2 days. It's now going into 3, 4, 5 days,
Yeah.
which creates additional anxiety for people.
Okay. What else? The live stream, thank you, Steve, for being here, for doing that. Is that something we could use, like teachers could use it if they're doing a project in class and parents will be a way for them to participate? We know we used to invite parents in. You can't do that anymore. Is that?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think that they have, you know, I think Zoom would do a similar fashion. There's probably a lot of flexibility in that. I will talk to Steve and report back.
I mean, if we have it, another way to, for teachers if they want to use it. All right, thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. All right, moving on to public comment. Seeing none, I'm going to move to reports and discussion. The first one is going to be the board committee report for stakeholder relations. And that, I believe, was Matt's minutes. So if somebody else in that committee wants to do it, and you could we can just go over the decisions being brought to the full board. If one of the two of you, one of you want to?
I'm happy to.
Okay.
Sure. A meeting of the Stakeholder Relations Committee of the Rhinebeck Central School District Board of Ed was held on December 3rd, 2020, via Zoom and at the district office. Present at the meeting were Megan Barbera, Albert Cousins, Jacqueline Makuya, Stephen Jensen, and Matthew Ben Warmer, constituting all of the committee members. Mr. Cousins greeted all in attendance and called the meeting to order at approximately 5 p.m. Committee discussions. Number 1, building on discussions at the previous committee meeting, the committee members further discussed the communications plan, also referred to as the plan. Mr. Jensen stated that he has begun the process of updating the plan, but that the structure of the plan is not expected to be finalized until additional conversations are held with external stakeholders. Mr. Cousins noted that he has had recent discussions with the Rhinebeck Teachers Association, RTA, regarding methods of communicating between parents and teachers. He stated that there was agreement on the importance of establishing a clear protocol for parent-teacher communications so that teachers can most efficiently respond to and resolve issues raised by parents as appropriate. The committee members noted that social media is not effective in this regard. The committee members agreed that once finalized, the communications protocol could potentially be included in the fall newsletter as well as sent electronically. Number 2, the committee members then discussed how technology could be further leveraged in order to provide increased access for parents to district activities, especially in view of the ongoing COVID-19 environment. The committee members noted the recent success of the virtual back-to-school night and explored other opportunities to utilize technology. For example, the committee members discussed the possibility of using video communication on occasion in addition to email. The committee members also discussed how the limited use of live video for special events could help provide parents with a better sense of the school environment. Number 3, Mr. Jensen then provided a brief history of the district website. He discussed the need to begin the process of identifying a new web application. Mr. Jensen explained that he had conducted a survey of the web applications used by other school districts within and outside of Dutchess County. Mr. Jensen stated that he planned to review how many of the district's teachers currently maintain a functional, updated web page of their own. The committee then discussed the potential benefits of a more streamlined product which could be used uniformly across the district by administrators, teachers, support staff, parents, and students. The committee members noted the benefits of engaging a parent focus group to determine the features parents are looking for in a web application. In terms of timing, Mr. Jensen stated that the goal is to have a new web application in place by July 1st, 2021. Number 4, as a follow-up item from the previous committee meeting, Mr. Cousins noted that discussions with the mayor of Rhinebeck regarding SROs had concluded favorably, and the committee members agreed that SROs play a positive role in the district and continue to be an important resource. Committee decisions: number 1, to recommend to the board that the district proactively issue a communications protocol on an annual basis tailored by building level. Number 2, to recommend to the board that the district explore additional ways to leverage technology in order to provide increased access for parents to district activities. And number 3, to recommend to the board that the district create a profile/needs assessment in connection with the search for a new web application. There being no further business, upon a motion duly made and seconded, the meeting was adjourned at approximately 6:00 p.m. Eastern Time. Matthew Van Wormer, Acting Secretary. That is formal.
For those not on the committee, any discussion regarding the decisions in the minutes? Any?
I'm just curious on the website, like, what were some of the things that might be lacking, or some of the districts that have built more functional websites that we can kind of take a look at?
Okay, so what's interesting now is we currently have an individual who manages that, so it's very much like a home constructed. I think that the seamless integration of school software programs is probably the best. So something like, we use School Messenger now to communicate out. There are web applications. There's actually one that's School Messenger, and I'm not promoting one product over the other, but it seamlessly integrates with what we do. So it's, as you send that email out, you include it with broadcast, and there's a communication center on the website. So you don't log into a separate portal of the website to do that. So it's very seamless with all of that. So no one will miss a communication, because if your School Messenger settings are off or something, it still goes into that. And you can designate the type of message and where it fits into the web page. So that it's really how it fits into the bigger system. And I think some of the other characteristics is right now ours has been focusing on the back end, which was an era quite some time ago when schools were asking teachers to create individual websites, which has really gone out of fashion in a flash with the advent of things like Canvas, like Google Classroom. The web presence is much more academic. It's about the course. So you don't see these like teacher websites like you used to anymore. So the functionality should be, in my recommendation, more front-facing to the people who use it, to parents. And so right now, our website is more functional on the back end, things that people don't even see when you log in, as a place to get forms, as a place to manage your site, all of that. So I think there are products out there that are much more tied to the school calendar. So all of that is just seamless. So you're not managing another one. Right now, ours requires lots of logins to manage it, which leads to lots of outdated information, because it means a lot of people have to do a lot of steps to keep it current. So it's about integration and it fitting in, and it meeting the needs of the people who actually go to it, which is most likely people over the age of 30, the parents.
So would we need somebody to administer that and pay to run that, or is it
Well,
mostly off the shelf?
There are benefits of school-based websites, like some of the products. Blackboard is a product, eChalk is a product, School Messenger is a product. Having those are designed for schools of all sizes to manage very easily, like drag and drop. So it would not come with an additional, it would actually be, in my view, a lot easier to manage than our current product, which I think is beautifully done, and I think, you know, I'm very grateful for all of the work that the webmaster has done, but I think some of the more school-specifically designed packages are going to be a little bit more comfortable for a school to manage. But I think it's exciting, honestly, to have an opportunity to rethink it, because we're kind of forced to do it because we're losing our person. So this is I see this as like a real opportunity to get people involved, to say, hey, what would you like to see on there? And then have a couple of options out there, and then like let that be like a nice aspirational goal. It's something that has a deliverable by that date, and I think all of that is good for us to be able to look at a fresh, you know, post-COVID website.
Anybody else? Yep. All good? That makes sense. Okay, moving on to Dutchess County School Board Association report. Mark?
So the meeting was held last Thursday. We had a visit from Denise Chukowski, who is the Duchess BOCES Special Education Director, I believe is her title. She spoke about how COVID-19 is a hot topic in special education and how we provide services for special education students. So BOCES is actually operating on a hybrid model right now. They have two cohorts, an A cohort and a B cohort that are operating. They don't have the numbers of students that they would like. They have about 50 to 60% of them learning remotely. So they're trying to balance staff, you know, and meet everyone's needs. They have, in an effort to be fiscally responsible, they've laid off about 27 special education aides at BOCES. However, the main takeaway I had in the discussion was that in federal law still requires that you provide special education according to the IEP that's been set. And so, there was a lot of discussion about, in some situations, they have where there's students that have a one-to-one aide in their IEP. There's situations where there's more adults in the classroom than there are students because, there's a teacher, possibly with a couple of students that each have an aide. And there's really no flexibility in that area to try to, make adjustments to more effectively manage the classroom. There's also instances where families who are remote, where the student is a one-to-one aide, and families are asking for the aide to come to their home to work with the student during remote learning, and Ms. Chukowski strongly recommends against that because you have no way to manage the aide when they're working from home. And I'm not familiar with the regulation, but there's a Part 100 regulation. I think that's a federal regulation. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I was trying to manage the Zoom meeting and try to call on people as they were asking questions, and so I kind of got lost in a couple of these things. But the governor has in effect done away with Part 100 regulations, is saying that parents have choice about how their student is educated, whether it be in person or remote. So there's some conflict going on.
Yeah. So, yeah. The one thing that, the biggest takeaway was the challenge that IEPs are created given a certain educational context, and they're done as part of the annual review. And all of school districts scrambled to create models for delivering instruction in this. And that was done, with all that timeline that, if we remember back to August. And there has been no modification to the expectation. The expectation is the IEP is the binding document that you must fulfill that. And so the presentation really dealt with the challenges that we're all facing, because what the IEP was crafted on, even down to the minutes and days and contact, is all on a model that the governor has allowed parents to make choices about their education, which makes it very, very difficult when a student receiving a lot of services opts to be fully remote. And then it gets even more complicated because some services are actually prescriptions, like OT, PT. So that would be something that they can go to the home. I mean, it's very complex, and it's just, I think every district is doing the best we can. And I will say, in my conversations with Emily after I attended that meeting with Mark, I feel very confident in the leadership in that area in our school district, because it is very much about that individual, which is the spirit of an IEP, is it's got to be really about that and being cognizant of the context. I think she mentioned a couple of times, we have to recognize that we're in this remote learning, and what does cueing a student look like in a remote setting versus in an in-person setting? There's a lot of work, and just as our regular education teachers are navigating this new normal, I think our special education teachers are doing that times 10 with that. And she painted an accurate picture, but it was not the most uplifting presentation of the state.
Yeah, I'll just say, anecdotally, because my wife is a special education teacher, I've heard anecdotally about, you have students on a Zoom meeting and, they have behavior issues, and you have, those students are doing things, especially when you're integrated into a regular class, doing things on a Zoom meeting, and someone has to really pay attention to what they're doing and try to, they have to mute them because they're making noises or, doing things that they probably shouldn't be doing in a Zoom meeting with a class. And, there's a lot of management issues that go on in those situations. So it's really can be hard to manage.
I will say that also our district is doing a tremendous job of documenting, monitoring, and keeping track of all of those conversations that are happening with the families. I think that the thing that is most special about Rhinebeck is that personalization, and you see that best in the special education department.
Hey, Mark, did they talk any about, like, our district's going to be set for litigation in the future? If an IEP says you have to have a one-to-one aide and they're in the middle school, then they're only in person 2 days, and there's minutes on their IEP, I mean, is that something that down the road we could be looking at trouble, or?
I asked that question. I made that. I expressed that word. I represented that perspective that is a concern of mine.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it was really just an informational presentation. I don't think. Right.
It certainly is a concern.
And I imagine if David would say, we have to wait and see what after the first case comes, what happens. Well, I know our special ed department does a great job, but there's a lot of challenges there, I'm sure.
So before we move on to the next item, and happy to answer any other questions, but next month's topic is a presentation by David Shaw on trends in contract negotiations, so you may want to consider putting that on your calendar the first Thursday of January. To attend that meeting.
I will also say that it was a well-attended meeting. This last one, I thought it was nice to see. There's a lot of districts.
We actually had several superintendents attending, which is, we usually have 1 or 2 or 3, but, I think there was 5.
Okay, we're going to move on to legislative advocacy. I think we have at our place some paperwork related to this.
I shared with members of the board, so the 2020 advocacy agenda is the advocacy agenda after the budget was revealed last year, so that is kind of current. It's not the new, because we're a little bit ahead of the game, because we're still pending a lot of action at the state level. The cover attachment that has what occurred in the 2020 legislative session is interesting because it's in a chart form and it kind of details the effect on the schools. And you'll see the very first item about the flexibility with the 180-day requirement, which was a big topic, and it was a positive effect on schools. Some of them are neutral. And then on the back side of that advocacy cover sheet, it talks about the budget implications there. And, Tom can speak a little bit more about that and where our position is relative to that. But I'm just providing this to you as we are a member of that consortium, and as a result, they are an advocacy body, and so they establish some of those priorities. We do have representation on that committee, and in addition to our district, I attend those sessions. It's also there's a member of the Dutchess County School Boards Association who also advocates on behalf of the county and school boards on the Lower Hudson Educational Coalition. So we're not out there alone, is what I'm trying to get at, is that there is a body out there who's looking at these issues regionally, and our affiliation with them provides a little bit more heft because we're affiliated with some, other counties.
You guys just, some members of the board were able to meet with one of our legislators this afternoon. We want to update how that went, update the rest of the board on how that meeting went this afternoon. I'm not sure who was on that.
Tom spent a little bit of time talking about some of the a lot of this is anticipation because we're waiting for what the full fiscal picture will look at the state level. There's been a lot of discussion in circles about the loss in revenues for the state, and we don't know what the ultimate impact is there. There was some discussion about a desire at the federal level to provide relief and how that would actually trickle down to us. We asked some very specific questions about some legislation and what would the impact be on schools. It was a very, I would say, neutral conversation in that these issues are pretty common. A lot of people are asking a lot of questions. There isn't a lot yet of answers because those answers have not been yet provided. So we really aren't sure what position we're actually in until the terms are clearly defined. So they aren't. What is good is I think there's growing momentum around, look, schools need to know, because as you know now, we are going on a month-to-month basis to understand what the aid percentage will be at this point. Yeah. So even that, so I think that we're pushing the lawmakers to put us at in their sphere of we've got all these school districts out there. We're operating now, and we have to be planning for the future. And all of that is very complex in absence of their answers. And I think that in some ways I actually felt that our conversation today, there was a belief that until things move at the federal level, that the state is sort of in this marking time. And so that I thought was interesting to me because they're looking at if there's any federal implications on the state revenues, which would then trickle down to schools. And I think that is a sticking point now. I felt that it wasn't said. I just felt that that's what we were getting.
Definitely came up a couple of times that, our federal representatives aren't really doing what we need them to do to get the legislation moving so that we can all know what is going to happen.
It's a lot of, we're pointing the question to this level, that level's pointing the question to that level. It's sort of, we're all in this suspended state of needing a little bit on there. But, I think we are getting our heads wrapped around where we're at as a district, with what our particular position is. And I think, Tom has done a really good job of educating himself around all of the potentialities. I know he has presented at the committee level a lot of scenarios, possibilities. Which I think is the best thing that we can do is to prepare for the unknown, is to prepare for many scenarios so that we're not, caught off guard regardless of what occurs.
Well, thank you for those that were able to attend. Let's move on to good news. Is there any good news?
I have some good news that was presented today. There were two members of the Rhinebeck community who put together a book. It's called The Healers and Heroes During the COVID-19 Pandemic, and it's about the spring in Rhinebeck. It's called Rhinebeck Essentials. And on the cover of this, there's actually one of our own, Steve Jensen is on the cover, and then also featured in the book, and it's a beautiful book with excellent photography, Larry Anthony, our food services, talking about, his role, both of their roles in the pandemic in the spring and what it took, as well as our SRO, Ken Scattergood, is also there. So it's a beautifully done book. It was done as part of a fundraiser as well, but it just became on sale at Oblong Books, not an advertisement. But I thought it was really great to see some of our very own, and they recognized the school's essential role during the crisis in the spring. And so I just wanted to put that out there as, that's pretty cool.
That's very
So-
cool.
Anybody else have any good news? I think it's great news. We have on our consent agenda a few items that we're bringing activities for kids, the indoor track, and the Human Rights Club, and then the play coming Thursday. So it's just, I think that's great that we're providing those.
It's outdoor track.
Outdoor track,
Yes.
sorry.
Yes.
Winter track, but
Yes.
outdoor, yeah. All right, any old business? Okay, another opportunity for public comment. Seeing none, any other? Okay, we're going to move on to our action items. Can I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the following consent items?
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. And then be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Rhinebeck Central School District hereby adopts the retention and disposition schedule for New York Local Government Records, Schedule LGS-01, issued pursuant to Article 57A of the Arts and Cultural Affairs Law, containing legal minimum retention periods for local government records for use by all officers in legally disposing of valueless records listed therein, and be it further resolved that in accordance with Article 57-A, only those records described in Schedule LGS-01 will be disposed of after they have met the minimum retention periods described therein, and B, only those records will be disposed of that do not have sufficient administrative, physical, legal, or historical value to merit retention beyond established legal minimum periods.
So moved?
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, and motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the following resolution. Resolved that the Board of Education approve the terms of the release and settlement agreement involving student number 2020-21-02, a copy of which shall be incorporated by reference in the minutes of this meeting, and be it further resolved that the superintendent of schools be and hereby is authorized to execute such release and settlement agreement on behalf of the district.
So moved?
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes. And that's not, okay, no executive session. So can I have,
For negotiation.
oh, yes, I'm sorry. Can I have a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of contract negotiations?
So moved?
Second.
Those in favor? Okay. Into executive session.